Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. Mr Deputy President, I rise to talk about Bankwest. We had a Senate inquiry recently, and the public would be well aware that Bankwest was sold to the Commonwealth Bank in 2008 for $2.1 billion. It appears to me, Mr Deputy President, this sale prompted a scrutiny of Bankwest's loan book and believe the instructions came from above to clean it up. For the past year or so, numerous complaints have come to my office from business people who are clients of Bankwest. And after listening to many stories, I pushed for a Senate inquiry into the wider banking industry with my colleagues Senator Bushby, Senator Cormann. The inquiry was called The Banking in the Post-GFC Banking Sector. In that inquiry, I want to quote what Mr Rob DeLuca, Managing Director of Bankwest, said in his opening statement in relation to customers affected by the global financial crisis. He said, "It is in our interest to support viable, sustainable businesses during periods of genuine hardship." I'll repeat that quote. "It is in our interest to support viable, sustainable businesses during periods of genuine hardship." I want you to remember that quote. I'm sure you will, Senator McDonald, my colleague listening here. Let me take to the case of a hotelier in Queensland, Mr Ken Brundell. Mr Brundell owns a Ram's Head Hotel in Millmerran in southwest Queensland. One day along comes a hotel broker and finance broker and tells him he should buy the Cobb & Co Hotel at St George. St George, where Senator Barnaby Joyce has his office. Mr Brundell was quite happy owning just the one hotel, but Bankwest chased him aggressively and made it sound like Christmas had come early. It was a 3-year loan offered to Mr Brundell. Mr Brundell asked Bankwest, after 3 years, would they roll a loan over again? They said, "Oh, certainly, of course we would. This is we're a good bank. We'll do whatever we can for you." So he went ahead and borrowed the money. The interest rates went up to around 9% during the term of that 3-year period. At the end of the 3 years, Bankwest said things had changed and they wanted their money back. They pulled the plug on the business. Mr Brundell was paying interest only and had never missed a payment. The hotels were trading well, but like all country pubs, were subject to the droughts and the floods. Now Bankwest is charging an interest rate of around 18%. And Mr Brundell continues to make payments at the old rate, but I'm informed Bankwest won't accept his money. All Mr Brundell wants to do is to sit down with Bankwest and work through the issue, to sit down and get them to honour their deal about this rolling 3-year loan over so he can pay his interest and sell one of the hotels. While still in Queensland, Mr Deputy President, this is a case of another business which has never defaulted but finds itself in Bankwest's bad books. I underline, have never defaulted, have never missed an interest payment. They had a loan that was due to expire in January this year. So they met with the bank in December, Bankwest that is, last year, and was told that the bank no longer wanted their business. They were told the bank would contact them again in mid-February to arrange a new valuation which would cost them $8,000, but nothing has happened. This business has never defaulted in interest and principal and have provided all financials and information to Bankwest in a timely manner. 3 years ago they were told they had to switch from the fixed interest loan to a variable interest, and the switching fee was, listen to this Mr Deputy President, the switching fee they debited the account with was $246,000. $246,000. This was never put in writing but was witnessed by 4 people in the room at the time. You will get out of your fixed loan interest, you'll go into variable, and by the way, we'll just grab $246,000 on the way. It didn't matter that in the last few months this Queensland business had $100,000 damage from the floods and lost $30,000 in revenue because it was closed for 6 days. Bankwest still going nowhere with this business. Now, what about some sympathy? I know Stephen Munchenberg from the Australian Bank Association sent me an email media release. Banks will be compassionate and considerate to those affected by floods. And I know he would mean it because he's a good bloke. I know that Westpac have certainly put a media release out saying and informed me, people under financial stress because of the floods, we will talk to you, we will give you some reprieve, and we will help you through this. In an email today, the owners say, this is I quote, this email to my office today, All we asked is to be left alone until we get a sale. They just want to sell a resort and get on with their life. And that is the press they put under. They're a good young family and good hard workers. Mr Deputy President, I'll take you to another case, a case of a publican on the mid-north coast of New South Wales. Stephen Weller, his name is, has owned an Ambucca hotel at Maxville for 7 years and has been financed by Bankwest. He has paid $200,000 off the principal of his debt in the last 2 years and has never missed a payment, an interest payment. In September last year, he was advised the hotel's value had fallen and a deed of forbearance was issued to make their loan due on the 10th of January this year. Mr Weller went and sold a block of poker machines in the family home, but did not get the proceeds in time to settle on the 28th of February, just gone. And a solicitor's letter was received a few days later to say he was in default. He'd sold the poker machines, he's selling the house. Bankwest extended the facility to the 19th of March and they will have to cough up the proceeds from the sale of the house. Stephen Weller works 4 shifts and starts at 3:30 a.m. every day. And if the hotel is sold, well, he has nowhere to live. He is paying his way. Remember those words of Mr DeLuca. I'll repeat them. It is in our interest to support viable, sustainable businesses during periods of genuine hardship. Is that a statement misleading that Senate inquiry, I wonder, Mr Deputy President? Here's Mr Weller and his Ambucca hotel at Maxville, has never missed an interest payment, has paid $200,000 off his principal and now paying more selling his house and poker machines, but he's under the pump. Even my office has trouble getting Bankwest to the table, and they generally need a few prods to get them going. In fact, my staff have given up on trying to get answers out of them. I have a good relationship with most of the banks, Mr Deputy President, can speak only highly enough of people there in the other banks. Justin Owen and Dallas McInerney, that I work with in the National Australia Bank. Good people, good to deal with. Ryan Bloxham from Westpac, speaking to Ryan today. Good communicator. We have a problem, we go and talk to these people. Michael Johnson and Keith Waybury from the ANZ, same thing. Good communication, let's work through the problems. And John McClanahan from the Commonwealth Bank. I hold these people in high regard because when I have a complaint about some problem with a bank, or people think they've been done badly by a bank, we can sit down, we can communicate, we can talk, but not Bankwest. Bankwest can learn a lot from the way those banks deal with clients who need a hand. As I said, the big 4 are good to deal with and mostly we work through the problems. Don't always have a win, but at least they'll always talk to us. I would have thought Bankwest would have received a wake-up call from the banking inquiry because many of the complaints were about Bankwest, but obviously they are slow learners. They need to lift their game, Mr Deputy President. On this day when we're celebrating 50 years of the wonderful work of Lifeline, I know what financial pressure can do to a person. I don't want to see more people ringing Lifeline under mental stress because of financial worries. We know businesses do it tough, we know some go broke. But the message I give to Bankwest is that you deal with money, we in this place deal with people. And it's time you show some more respect for those businesses that are paying their way. They're not responsible for the price of their asset going down. We had a global financial crisis. What caused the global financial crisis? Well, 2 things. One was severe government debt around the world in Europe, Japan, United States. The other was a thing called subprime lending. And who carried out the subprime lending? Lehman Brothers and banks. That's what brought on the global financial crisis, and now it seems to be everyone else's fault. I'm really annoyed that Aussies have a go, like Mr Ken Brundell, and when the heavy salesman says, we'll finance you, they finance Ken Brundell all the way. 100% for the hotel in St George, and even included the legal fees. The Bankwest was very confident, oh, we'll lend you the money. And here's a bloke over in his 70s, working daylight way past dark, and they up his interest rate to 18%. To me, that is very un-Australian. It's like when someone's down, you put the boot in. As I said, I've got a good rapport with all the banks, but I can't say much in kindness to Bankwest, Mr Deputy President, the way they're treating some of these people. And I just hope they lift their game, show some respect, and when their customers are paying their interest and paying their way, stick with them. As one senior bank officer said to me, why would you sell someone up when they're meeting their interest payments? A very good question, but only Bankwest can answer that. Sure, their LVRs have increased because of the assets going down. That is not their fault.
Thank you, Senator Williams.